to the SNEA podcast on data series. I am Mark Brown, your host, and I am delighted to be speaking to my guest, Mr. David McIntyre. And I'm also excited and delighted about the topic that we're going to be addressing today, which is AI. So I'm super excited about that. But before we dive into that conversation, David, I'd love to do a quick introduction because there are people who may or may not know you on the podcast. If we could do a quick introduction and then we'll dive straight into the exciting topic of AI. That's okay.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So, hi, everybody. My name is David McIntyre. So, I'm with Samsung, Director of Product Planning and Strategic Business Initiatives, and centered here in the Silicon Valley. That's where the Samsung USA headquarters is based. And I've been in the Silicon Valley for about 20 years, working for large companies and startup companies. That's a good thing to do here in the Valley. Mostly in semiconductors, but I've elevated my game from simply device level to solutions and really partnering with the end users and the application developers to ensure that those devices can migrate up with integrated software stacks and provide the performance and expectations that the end customers require and are looking forward to. And certainly AI, what a refreshing new opportunity for not only software and hardware, but the entire technology ecosystem. So looking forward to having a chat with you, Mark, on the AI topic. I do have significant experience across many parts of the AI, so I'm happy to share and hopefully provide some benefit to your audience.
Super. I'm looking forward to this, and I have been looking forward to this all week, if I'm honest, David. One of the things I would like to do is just from a high-level perspective, could you provide an overview of the current state of AI adoption within corporate IT and IT in general, from your own perspective?
Surely. So it's really, I haven't seen anything like this emerging trend in my entire career. It's just 6 months ago, maybe a little longer, that the hype wave was just hit us all so strongly. And I think, the range, the spectrum of companies and solution providers are scrambling to come up with compelling applications that can take advantage of these AI technologies, from cloud to edge, on-premise, large language models to smaller large language models. So I would say we're cresting through the hype wave, the Gartner hype curve, but I think we're coming now into how do we actually come up with some fathom of reality around AI applications, especially for enterprise? The chat GPT type solutions are providing strong value across consumer and even enterprise markets for, I can have chat GPT write a book for me. I tell it what style it does for me. These sorts of things. But as we get in, and that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to having some time where I can do these sorts of things. For the enterprise applications, I had the privilege of listening to Michael Dell speak directly on, he also had the same, he agreed that AI is still, in the bubble, but Dell is preparing to enter in and provide some grounded solutions, whether it's in cancer or biomedical research, using AI constructs. And I thought that was quite insightful of Mr. Dell. So that's where I think we are. We're pushing through the excitement and the frenzy. I was just attending the Open Compute conference here in San Jose and had the opportunity to listen to many of the keynotes there. I think now we're getting into some of the practicalities around AI deployment.
That's actually interesting. So, from a SNEA perspective, now that we're kind of talking in the AI perspective, I know there are advancing architectures and specifications. Can you kind of allude to that, from the SNEA perspective, but also as to where SNEA ourselves see AI developing and why we're kind of giving our own perspective on and even the SNEA alliances, which we can dive into in due course. But what uh, yeah, what's the, I suppose, the driving force behind the advancing architectures, and we could talk about SNEA architectures as well.
Sure. So I've had the opportunity to be on the board at SNEA. So from a corporate viewpoint, SNEA recently announced a rebranding of the organization where we had consensus that we are experts on data.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that mean for AI applications? It means, as you alluded to, how do we align the infrastructures, the compute, networking, storage, and memory resources to best support all of that data, hordes and hordes of data that are now being created to support AI applications. So in large language models, as an example, I was grounded to each of these models, whether it's from Meta, Google, AWS. All the big guys now have large language models. So they see very strong value in deploying AI solutions across their channels. But large language models, they contain billions and billions of parameters that are required to train, to infer, to make sense of all this data that's collected and where we want to put some intelligence behind that data. In fact, one of the keynotes that I saw yesterday was alluding to now these models are trillions
Wow.
of parameters in size, which is just unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do about all that? From a SNEA perspective, the first thing to do, because we have all this data, is figure out what we're going to do with it. How are we going to compute on it? And so the algorithms will help determine what we're going to do with it. But then where do you compute on it? And that's where data-centric computing, computational storage comes into play, where instead of moving this humongous amount of data up to a host processor or host processor complex, why not deploy distributed compute resources, whether it's cloud to edge? Okay, that's pretty obvious. But even within a data center framework, maybe you're deploying compute resources or accelerators at endpoints where the data is collected. So that helps to resolve some of the compute to memory bottlenecking. Many of these AI type applications are now memory bound, and so that is one consideration. For storage needs to be scalable and be able to support a variety of file types and data types. And actually now storage, 10 years ago, it was kind of this old technology that was getting kind of dusty. Now it's got a coat of paint,
Yeah.
and it can actually work very closely, tightly coupled with memory resources as a last level cache. And I'll get into that in a little more detail, but so that's the storage side.
Okay.
And networking, because if we do deploy compute resources where the data is created, we're now alleviating all that bottlenecking in networking. And as I was rushing here to get to the venue, sitting in traffic, yes, there's traffic again on the roads. It really put it into play that if you can't move the data through the pipes, it can't be computed on, right?
Exactly.
So So that's a nice scope of what's going on from an infrastructure challenges standpoint for AI and some potential solutions. What SNEA is doing is we have computational storage models and specs that and actually reference guides that help uh, and enable our members and people that are or companies that are thinking of joining SNEA to get a quick start and come up the learning curve on how to deploy optimum infrastructures. So that's one of the things we're doing. Um, yeah, and I'll jump into another, but what do you think about that?
What do I think about that? Well, I think it's great that SNEA are actually giving that sort of get started point of view, because a lot of companies are, you know, keen to get be a part of the AI revolution itself,
Yeah.
and to take part. Um, you know, from the SNEA perspective, are you now creating sort of from the membership side of things? I'm assuming that there's a bit more discovery as members join and they kind of share their perspectives on SNEA. How is that working out? And I know there are SNEA alliances that are you might speak about that, how they're moving the ecosystem forward. But I'd be interested in terms of the conversations that you're having around that, and what SNEA is driving with regard to that.
So, so as I mentioned, we purposely rebranded SNEA to align it with the market dynamics of today.
Hmm.
And new members are coming in and very excited to see the scope of topics that SNEA covers. Um, in fact, I mentioned infrastructure. That's somewhat traditional, but still right in the center of what needs to be worked through, and bringing in use cases and end user applications into those discussions across groupings of very, very smart people that are now very excited people looking to ride this wave, whether it's AI or other very compelling applications in enterprise. The new membership is equally as excited and sees an opportunity to contribute and support not just one ecosystem, but a number of ecosystems that SNEA either leads or supports. And from a collaboration standpoint and alliance standpoint, um, we do a number of things, both technically, where we partner with alliance groups, whether it's the NVMe organization, PCI SIG, the DNA storage organization, or from a marketing standpoint, where we need to really get the word out on, say, CXL, which is Compute Express Link,
Hmm.
that in itself, that organization has 250 member companies, and it's basically becoming the hub standard organization, one of the hub standard organizations. And CXL, the value prop there is that what I talked about earlier about alleviating those bottlenecks, well, having CXL attached to the memory interface allows to free up, it helps to free up memory constraints and scale memory, and actually share memory across multiple hosts. That's enough of the techie part of it, but
Hmm.
yeah, so we are partnered with CXL on a marketing outreach standpoint right now. We're planning to, we're in discussions with them to go even deeper technically with CXL Alliance. UCIe is another one that we're having discussions with. Same track of, because UCIe supports chiplets, which are these little puzzle pieces that you can put on a system on chip processor type of platform. So there's a lot of building block opportunities there. These basically the toolkits through these alliance partners that SNEA can help to evangelize and also provide technically oriented solutions around.
It sounds really cool. I'm assuming that there's plenty of opportunity to use or to do research in terms of really cool projects. Just from interesting, you spoke about networking and data. Just from an infrastructure point of view, what are the challenges seen in AI? I mean, what challenges is AI putting on our old infrastructure, even though if though it's got a coat of new paint? Is it burdening it or is it helping it?
I think AI is really stretching existing infrastructures.
Mm.
So, what I mean by that is, you have cloud to edge and or on-premise deployments in data centers, and for cloud to edge, when you're starting to exercise AI applications, you're collecting the data at edge points. Perhaps you're applying those distributed compute resources or computational storage at the edge. But then what do you do with that data? You got to move it back to the mothership for further deep dive analytics. At the edge, you're doing real time video analytics as an example, perhaps for security purposes. You're
Right.
analyzing, right, and or safety purposes. But to go further and doing deeper analytics that support different vertical markets, whether it's retail or medical or a variety of verticals, that orchestration of managing data and the output of upon data, what are the answers? That's a challenge. The other challenge would be, I mean, there's many, but another one that comes to mind is the marrying up of these new infrastructure resources to the application layer, and that is typically a software lift. And data center operators, they just want everything to run consistently with high quality, smoothly, with no power downs, and bringing in new technologies, whether it's a software, new rev of software, or new deployment of servers, or any of the infrastructure componentry. Um, that requires very detailed planning, and they don't want to do that and disrupt the current day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
So, from a SNEA standpoint, bringing in these new guidelines on software deployments, I mentioned the computational storage API model, which is an example software model to connect computational storage resources to the host. That takes some vetting out by the end customers, by the application developers before they deploy it. And they just don't automatically deploy these things across an entire data center. They'll pick a corner of a data center and make sure it's isolated, and that whether they're working out hardware or new software, they'll make sure that everything is safe and sound and runs as expected, it's deterministic, it's consistent, it's high quality, before they open up the gates for that new technology to be deployed across the entire
Right.
data set, right? So that's another challenge. One of the big challenges, it's the elephant in the room, frankly, and I heard this at one of the other keynotes at the conference yesterday, was that power consumption,
Right.
right? And you know about this, Mark. So
Yeah.
with the amount of AI data that's being generated and the necessity to compute on that data, the you just watch your power meter spin.
Hmm.
It's fast, and projections of 50 megawatt data centers going into gigawatt data centers in the future. Um, yeah, that's a major concern. But I believe that what I heard so far is that there are many companies that are embracing sustainability. And in fact, not I just didn't hear this. I know Samsung specifically, where I work for my day job, they have a very vetted interest in sustainability and circularity of resources to both provide power savings across memory, SSDs, and any products that Samsung makes for that matter,
Okay.
to help do our part and contribute to power efficiencies across the data center. from a sustainability standpoint. And I know also that the very large hyperscalers and the OEMs, they're having sustainability now integrated into their vernacular.
Right.
It's very important. And from a SNEA perspective, we've done a number of sustainability webinars on educating and alerting our members and the overall community that this has to be front and center as a key topic while we're talking technology. And I've had the privilege to be on a number of sustainability panels to help
Right.
do education.
And it is a big concern going forward because it is a big challenge worldwide, and there are regulatory aspects to it. And also there's the fact is that IT is starting to compete with domestic in terms of power consumptions as more data centers come online for what we want to consume as consumers, but it's actually directly competing with households in some respects. And it's challenging in Europe. I know it's challenging in the US. So it's good that there's the discussions around that. Is there any from an AI perspective, is there any way that AI can be used to kind of challenge that sustainability, or is anybody doing any development using AI to deal with sustainability
You know,
requirements?
I really didn't think about that just yet, but certainly that's a great question, Mark. I think there certainly are opportunities. So when we're measuring the carbon footprint of across data centers, that now data is being collected to manage the infrastructure and the operation of that infrastructure, keeping the carbon footprint in mind. Certainly, with that vast amounts of data that are being collected across a manufacturing floor or within a data center, can be exposed to AI analytics tools, so that I'm not suggesting these processes are manual processes. They're well beyond that. There are well-established processes for managing the carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
However, but just by applying sophisticated IA or AI, yeah, prediction algorithms, I suppose the opportunity here is, instead of reacting to the data, now we can actually predict
Yeah.
trends and look to adjust, pivot, and correct before that event actually occurs by using AI,
Mm-hmm.
large language models. So
Yeah.
that's a insightful question, Mark.
Yeah. No, it's one that comes to mind because even in terms of domestic situations, so say like a company here called Board Gas, they made predictions on prices that they
Sure.
got caught on high, and being able to use AI in terms of those, using the data of what's required versus what's being consumed and so forth. I think that's a good model, and it looks like that SNEA can give good guidance around that. One of the bigger questions, though, as well as one of the regulation type things and concerns, especially in the world that we're in now, how is security factored into AI, and what would SNEA be recommending around security factors and in that
Sure.
way?
So for SNEA, we actually last year we had an overall compute plus memory plus storage summit where we invited many speakers to come in and provide their viewpoints. But specific to security, we had a dedicated security track, and then even last year, we had a full security-based conference. So SNEA is really focusing on security. I mentioned sustainability. I would even suggest security, for different reasons, of course, is also front and center as a very salient topic. And for what SNEA is looking at are basically a number of security strategies and mechanisms that can catch any first catch, detect is a better way of saying it,
Okay.
and then correct and isolate any encroachment from a security standpoint. So that could be collecting at the detecting edge security issue at the edge or across the infrastructure. So we are working hand in hand. We have a number of experts within SNIA that sit on a number of ISO boards and all the prioritized security standards or regulatory bodies, and they're bringing in they do bring that expertise into SNEA, where as the experts on data, we can benefit from these experts that can basically point us in the right direction from not just a U.S. but a global regulatory requirement standpoint. So we're looking across, just to summarize, we're looking across how SNEA comes out with different deployments and architectures and recommended reference designs and specs that certainly bring in security front and center.
Okay. And just from an overall standpoint, is there any particular area or geography or even business that are doing it better than others, that might be leading the way? Or is there particular groups? I know SNEA are developing, but I'm just curious from your own perspective as to who might be leading out of the gate in terms of security and what direction that might be going.
Sure. I do have my ears out there on what's going on from a security standpoint. I know that Samsung is driving security across our solid state drives, and also from a system development standpoint. I had the privilege of working with the Memory Solutions Lab here at Samsung Device Solutions America. And certainly security is one of the key constructs when we're developing new architectures and solutions. One of the big topics where, again, this is a fun conversation because, ransomware is front and center in everybody's. And, I've had one of the security experts that is part of SNEA. He also works at Samsung, and I have discussions with him on a regular basis about how do we detect and proactively isolate a problem before it spreads. And so he's shared with me, Eric Hibbert is his name. He shared with me many of the approaches that are going on in his world, which is the security world, on coming up with common regulations. And so Samsung is coming back and saying, let's take a look at how we can detect ransomware before it becomes, a propagation of the problem across the system. So that's ongoing in development and research. And I know other companies are certainly leading that charge as well.
Excellent.
You can actually see that, that with AI, again, there's another opportunity that if we can help to predict these ransomware cases by looking at anomalous read and write patterns across solid state drives, or even across the overall compute memory and storage infrastructure in a data center, there's another practical application which is far beyond just AI as hype, which is a little derogatory because, there are those very compelling consumer applications, but here's an enterprise opportunity, an application that and a challenge that needs to be solved by applying AI, right? Applying AI to ransomware or security defense measures. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's it. It's a great aspect of it, and I can see it developing over time. From the point of view of the membership or people considering joining SNEA, is there any specific SNEA value you'd like to highlight around AI moving forward? And, what advice would you have for IT professionals if they're moving into this to this area, obviously join SNEA and be advised by us. But what's the overall value that we're offering, and what are you seeing in the sort of industry as it develops?
Surely. So I mentioned earlier that SNEA has rebranded itself to purposely and rebranded the deployment strategy to look at the end user and end applications. And if specific to AI, if you're coming in with AI expertise, then you may need some help marrying up to what the infrastructure requirements are from compute, memory storage, networking. And that's where SNEA is very well grounded with the expertise on data deployment, data management. Overall, any verbs that you could put around data, SNEA has been there for time. So from that standpoint, if you're coming in with that AI expertise, we're a great home for you to look at how to deploy your applications on infrastructure. And then from if you don't have that expertise, but you're wondering what this is all about, and the reality check that we talked about earlier, because we have groups across SNEA that focus on different aspects of technology, AI has gravitated into the middle of each of those groups as, okay, if we're working at like networking, storage, and security across networking storage, how does AI factor into that? So, on a weekly or, on a regular basis, we have these very smart people talking about basically keeping ourselves honest. So if one person comes up with an idea, we have these masterminds to evaluate different ideas and look to come up with practical solutions around specific AI deployments and some of the defense measures across security. Or let's not keep the power meter running for, let's keep these solutions sustainable. And then, what is the best purposing of the resources from a cloud to edge or on-prem perspective as it would apply to AI? So, in fact, SNEA will be coming up with an AI webinar very soon where we'll talk about these things directly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And just from kind of a final question before we sign off, but how do you, say from the next 12 months to 5 years, how do you, David McIntyre, see AI evolving in the next few years? What do you see is on the horizon? I know you've kind of alluded to it across the conversation, but is there anything specific that you think is coming, or that you're excited about, or that you can see is on the horizon?
Surely. So I spent most of our time today talking about the under the hood, the infrastructure part, and I think that will all get worked out as we have people at SNEA and across other organizations working and collaborating together along with the customers and the software developers. But I think that will shake out over the next 2 to 3 years. But why do we even shake it out? It's because of the extremely compelling end applications and potential solutions to problems that humanity has to deal with, right? And cancer research. Wouldn't it be wonderful in our lifetimes if we've actually come up with a cure to cancer?
Absolutely.
I mean, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the work that's being done in genomic sequencing, where we put artificial intelligence across already many families of algorithms and enhance those with AI. That to me, that's probably from a heart, from my heart, we could solve that problem, or even take it to food distribution services. 80% of the world seems to be poor, how we balance the delivery of food to those nations that need it, and remove waste from our world, right? So there's food waste, but pollution, the carbon footprint, minimize that to zero emissions by 2030. That's a little beyond 5 years, but I think sustainability needs to be not just walking. Right now we're talking a lot about, and we're doing good things too at Samsung, but realizing those goals that we've set from a global standpoint, not just Samsung, but all companies that have the opportunity to participate. So, those are three, I think you would agree, very important areas that
absolutely
we as a industry, or however you want to call it, it's our as humans, that I think it's an awesome opportunity to marry up what we can do with technology just to help contribute and potentially solve some of these problems that address our planet today.
Absolutely. Well, David, this has been fantastic. It's been a great conversation. It's certainly, for me, it's been enlightening. Learned little bit more about AI. And it makes me keen to find out more. Would love to have you on the podcast again, because I'm sure in a few months from now there'll be even further developments, because it's an exploding arena. So that was great. In the meantime, David, how do people reach out to you or capture any of the content that you're sharing online, or how do people stalk you online?
So the best way is to go to LinkedIn and search me, DS McIntyre. That would be one way. d.mcintyre@samsung.com, as I have my Samsung hat on. And then certainly, that's I'll check that. And from a SNEA perspective, most importantly, I'm happy to provide those introductions and follow up
Super.
on any questions that anybody had. But yeah, check the social media, LinkedIn. I'm leaning into that these days. It's great opportunity.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, David, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been a great, exciting topic. I've been your host, Mark Brown. Appreciate the listenership listening in, or if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. And we will see you in the next episode. David, thank you again. And I'm definitely going to be looking to talk to you in the next while, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot more exciting information to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mark.
Cheers.